Hey everyone, welcome to my May energy update. I'm out here in Totnes, which is in Devon, and I'm on a 3-week sacred activism course. I'm actually on week 2 of this course, and it's been an amazing journey of learning about activism, learning about the sacred and combining them, the spiritual and the action. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later on in the update. And it's just been amazing to be out here in nature. You can probably hear those birds singing in the background, and it's been a really much needed break from London to recharge and just revive and get my energy back. And this is where I want to start off with, actually, because right now, and I may have mentioned this many times, probably in every single video actually, is how important it is for us to connect with nature, and how important it is to connect with Mother Earth in a very conscious way. And in fact, on this course, when I first came along to it, I had quite a few ideas of what I was expecting to take action in a very direct way for the world. Yet the first week, as we were working with 2 Indigenous elders, Native Americans, and they were teaching us how to reconnect to Mother Earth and bring in their beautiful sacred ceremony, and it just reawoken that magic for me about what spirituality is all about for me, and that is that connection, that incredible divine spiritual connection that we have with all life. And so this connection that we have with Earth, we normally speak about nature in a very grounded way. We literally go there to ground, or we go there to cleanse, and in a way that's kind of an individualistic way of looking at it, which is great because we need that as well. Yet what I want to speak about here is this open connection and open dialogue that you can begin with Mother Earth. And she's really calling for us to reconnect with her. She's really calling for us to remember who we are, who she is, and who we are together. And as we do this, we start to awaken to a much deeper aspect of ourselves, because we are Mother Earth. She is us, we are her. We're all one and the same. And we've lost that connection with Mother Earth in the modern world, in the Western world, in the non-Indigenous way of life. And the Indigenous really show us how pivotal that is. Ancient spirituality is intrinsic spirituality is Earth spirituality. And this is across many cultures, Indigenous, pagan, all across, is very much about how the Earth is so core, central to our spirituality, our way of life here on the Earth. So I'm just opening up with this connection to Mother Earth to set the foundation for this video as well, because I work with Mother Earth a lot in my energy transmissions as well. Yeah, I've gone to a much deeper level, deeper way of connecting with her out on this journey. So I wanted to share that during this video as well. And so speaking about how the changes are occurring, we've gone through retrograde, and we like to get slapped about but all of these various backward motion, forward motion energies. And as with all things, and just to reiterate very briefly from the last video, is just to keep flowing, keep going with what's occurring, what's coming up. And I really recommend to integrate with this nature time. And I don't just mean like a few hours in the park. I'm talking about going out into nature and really being with Mother Earth, really allowing your energy field to decompress, allowing yourself to cleanse all of that EMF radiation as well, and allowing yourself to start to connect with your spirit. Allow yourself to start to connect with Mother Earth, and allow yourself to listen again. It's really important we learn how to listen to ourselves, listen to this song which is occurring inside of us, with all this noise that's happening around us. How can we really hear this vibration, this frequency, this song which is being played out? So if you can create a space for yourself to find that in your life, it'd be amazing to do so. A few days, a week, by yourself, or if it's with others, just ensuring that you get space to yourself as well during this time. Now, one of the things I'm going to jump right in there with on this energy update is what's happening with this idea of polarization around our beliefs, and it's something to be really aware of. And I want to start off talking about this because I've been seeing this for quite a few months, and it always takes a different form. In fact, I've seen this for quite a few years, I'm sure you have as well, where there's this polarization of beliefs between a certain concept which has a polarized opposite to counter it. And I'll start off with the example that I wanted to speak about here, and that is of the empath. There's a lot of articles, a lot of videos at the moment going around. There's a lot of statements which are talking about the 10 points which tell you that you're an empath, for example, which is great because you can find out more about who you are and just feel if you resonate with that description. But one of the things I really want to speak about here is to be really aware of labels, because the moment you label yourself is the moment you limit yourself. And labels are great in a way of organizing yourselves in the moment, but they should always be temporary. If you define yourself with a label, then you also limited yourself to being that particular idea of the label that you have. Remember, everyone has a different definition of that label anyway, so it's really about your definition. How are you defining yourself? And any definition which houses who you are, your personality, becomes a matrix in a way. And the reason I want to speak about the empath here is because there's a lot of articles and videos at the moment going out which are talking about how an empath can protect oneself against a narcissist. So we've got an empath on one hand, and we've got the narcissist on the other side. And this is really used quite often in this example of how an empath can survive a narcissist in their space. And what's really happening here is, as always, is a polarity shadow dance going on between both. And whenever we have, we literally have here the good guys and bad guys. It literally comes down to that binary polarity of us, we're the good guys, and them, the narcissist, right? Us empaths, them, the narcissist. So we have to really look at why we're defining ourselves with this, and why are we reacting to this shadow opposite. Always it's here for us to integrate. So we need to look at this, and do we have any relationship with the narcissist? This is a really difficult question to ask, because as an empath we all feel that we are rightly so empathic, sensitive, and we take on the world, and we're very sensitive. So how can we have anything in common with a narcissist who comes along and dominates and is very much about their ego? How can we have that? Because we have no little ego, because we're humble, right? Or we're sensitive. Now, this is a controversial topic, but for me, and I label myself as empathic, and I do so, and I try as consciously as I can not to have an enemy to that empathic nature. And if I do, I really need to look at why I'm having that, and is it serving me? But if I call myself empathic and I call myself sensitive, and I have briefly mentioned this in another video actually that I made, I have to ask myself, do I also have an ego? How big is my ego compared to those who are narcissists, who have big egos? Do I have a little ego and they have a big ego? Or are all egos the same size? This is a big question to ask. Are all egos the same size? And is it our perception of ourselves that determines how big or small that is? What is the ego? What I have discovered with the ego is that as a sensitive, as an empath, and this is again something I've covered in another video which I'll put a link to here, is that we can find ourselves being affected by everything around us. This is about me. That's that conversation, that statement. I am sensitive to that statement. What are we really saying here? We're saying here that my ego was sensitive to that statement. In other words, do I have a big ego? Is my ego thinking everything is about me? Why am I taking that so personally? What is being sensitive? Is something that we're taking too personally, what we generally call being too sensitive, isn't that really the ego that's being sensitive? Why do we have such a reaction to the narcissist? We need to look at this, and instead of polarizing, pointing the finger, which is occurring right now, we have to be able to see the enemy within our mind, because it isn't about anybody else, it's the enemy within our mind that we're reflecting. If we have no reactionary charge, emotional charge to that other individual, then yes, that's a different story. But if we've got that reactionary charge, there is a dynamic occurring. There's an emotional dynamic between us and them. And there's a relationship between us and them that we are given an opportunity to heal if you want that. This isn't to say that we allow everybody into our lives and we're okay with everything that happens. This isn't about that. We're allowed to have boundaries. We're allowed to say no to people. We're allowed to say yes to people. We're allowed to live the lives that we want, and this is something I want to come into as well. But this is about targeting groups and labeling groups of people as certain things, and labeling ourselves as certain things, because we have to ask, does it truly help us to define ourselves in this particular way? So coming onto this other arena, and I'm always speaking in paradoxes, because paradoxes are the way that we can really understand as we dance between that pendulum swing between our understanding of who we are. And one of the other things that I'm looking at and exploring right now in the collective theme is this real idea of standing up for ourselves and being spiritual and not having that spiritual bypass of ignoring our emotions, ignoring what we're feeling, ignoring that anger, that fire, that irritation, that frustration, that parts of ourselves that lead to that resentment, that lead to that passive aggressiveness. It's really important we start to act upon it and just say no to people, just starting to move into situations and arenas that support who you are. And this will mean a shedding of people in your life and friends. And I use that word lightly. This isn't something that we just take for granted and just start shedding people. It's important to look at the relationship between us and them. It's important to communicate. It's important to try and heal that. And if none of these things work, or that person isn't as close in our inner circle within our life that even requires that, which you can make a decision yourself as it's your life to decide whether it even requires that healing, then it's really important to honour who you are and honour your environment. And I'm not just talking about people here, I'm also talking about your work situation. I'm talking about your living situation. Everything, your environment is so critical to your well-being, your literal well-being of your mind, body, spirit, yourself. And just have a look and just see, are you still caught in an idea where you need to suffer in order to grow or experience? This may be to do with your work. Many people are caught in this endless feeling of suffering, that we need to stay in this environment, it's going to change, or I need to heal, I need to learn something from it. Same from a relationship, I need to stay in it because I need to learn something from it. It's a really common trap, because what we're saying is, I can never leave because there's always something to learn from it. So we get caught in the spiritual metaphoric ideas, and we get caught in our own loop. It's a loop that we get caught in. So really it's about, if things are not working after a while, it's important to take space. A relationship, for example. In a career, if things are not working after a while and it starts to become more and more detrimental to your health, to your well-being, your mental and emotional states, it's so important. It's so important to look at yourself and ask yourself the question each day, is this really worthwhile for my growth, for my learning, for my life? Am I really benefiting from this experience? And am I creating space to heal if that's not the case? And is that healing working? And ask these questions. And the reason I'm talking about all of this now is because a lot of systems are breaking down, a lot of relationships are breaking down, a lot of environments and realities that we've created for ourselves and expectations and ideas are breaking down. So just allow them to shed, allow them to break down, because a lot of new birthing is coming through. A lot of ideas of where you're going and new streams and downloads are coming through, which are really important for us to take in as well. You are here to shine and become a great potential of yourself. I'm not even going to say full potential, because that feels like such a huge thing to strive for. Just an incredible potential for yourself, and it's an ever unfolding process. We rise, we fall, we rise, we fall. It's birth, death, rebirth, and that's the nature of the universe. That's the nature of our nature throughout the year, the seasons. So allow that rise and fall, that in-breath, out-breath of life to just be whatever it is that needs to be. And again, speaking about the other paradox, because those of you who are listening, you're going to be tuning into each side of that pendulum that I'm speaking about, or both, many times both, because we're swinging between. And the other end of the pendulum is to take it easy, work from a much more feminine space, work slower, slow down. Those of you in cities know exactly what I mean. We need to slow our energies down. We need to slow our lives down, slow our pace down, start to breathe. Remember the breath. It's happening every moment. We need to remember to breathe between our conversations and our work. And, we know what's happening when we can't handle a few moments without looking at our phone. When that starts to happen, we're in a very destructive place. And it's really important that we look at that and say, look, I'm going to bring some discipline in now. And I keep talking about discipline in my videos because discipline is critical to bring in. Critical. We really need to bring in discipline to stop really limiting, disserving practices that we are caught up in patterns. And it's trauma when we keep doing that. We keep reliving traumatic experiences by bringing trauma to the body, to the mind, to our emotional states of being, by keep it going. Discipline allows us to take a rain check and go, hang on. Actually, it's not even a rain check because we don't want it to come back. We just say, look, I've got a habitual pattern here that I need to look at that isn't serving me, and I'm going to try and resolve this. I'm going to try and snap out of it. I'm going to go for a walk without my phone. I'm going to go for a break on my own. It rhymes. And I'm going to go and really do something for myself. I'm going to look at my situation at my work. I'm going to look at my relationship. I'm going to explore this authentically, and I'm going to see what happens. And so we can mix that discipline with that feminine energy, kind of that masculine energy of saying, hang on a minute, what's going on? I'm going to take some action here. And the feminine energy of saying, okay, how does that action take place? How does it form in my life? Can I go into a softer place and see where it comes from the heart? Can I really bring myself into a heart space and just say, like, I'm going to take some time to myself and just see what's coming up for me. What's coming up for me, and where can I take this healing? And not expecting an answer, just allowing ourselves to go into that space. So this allowing of ourselves to be in with our emotions and be with it, be with where we're at. So here I'm speaking to those of you who are going through more of an emotional state and more of a confusing state, and just being with that, being okay that you haven't found a solution or an answer, being okay with that transition. Confusion is a transition from one state of belief paradigm to another, because in order for us to move into the other, that first state, that older paradigm, needs to break down. As it breaks down, that is what we call a state of confusion. But it's actually a breakdown of older beliefs and patterns, and it's absolutely necessary. So allow that to break down and dissolve in its own way. If you feel like you're in there for a long time, then try something new. Step out of your comfort zone. And I spoke to somebody today who said she doesn't like calling it comfort zone, she calls it a prison. And that can help as well if it helps us to break out of it. If it feels like a prison, break out of your prison, your own prison, and step out of that and really allow yourself to move into something very new. Now, I wanted to talk about an issue that is really dear to my heart, and that is the spiritual bypass. This is this process where we deny our emotions. We try to be all spiritual and love and light and really beautiful and bright, and we try to really present this persona to the world, to ourselves really, of what we're trying to be. And the problem when we do that is we over spiritualize. We have this spiritual bypass. We don't look at our emotions. And again, I've mentioned before, I'm writing up an ebook on the spiritual matrix, which is essentially about spiritual bypass. But one of the things I wanted to speak about here, because it's so relevant to where I'm at here in Devon as we're learning this course, is the societal spiritual bypass. And that is where we have disconnected from society because we feel that our spiritual path means a very individualistic, healing the self, looking after the self. Self-love is what's going to heal the whole. It's a really important topic that we're healing, as we're healing the individual spiritual bypass of loving our light and loving our shadow, but also doing that on a collective level, because we've been conditioned to believe that we are separate from society, even though it's impossible to be separate. If we're eating food, if we're walking down the street, if we're living and breathing in a society, we are part of that society. So every single thing we do is part of that society, i.e. what we call politics, and we don't really like that word, we're all a part of it. Yet in the West, this is what's so interesting, because after meeting the Indigenous and watching the Indigenous, how they work, how they bring sacredness and so much spirituality into their lives, we can see them, they're actively standing up for people and planet, they're actively standing up for Mother Earth. And they're teaching us something we've forgotten, and that is this idea of responsibility. We don't like responsibility in the West, we just don't like that word, we don't want it. And this is because it's been conditioned out of us, or attempted to, by our very imperialistic governments, who really don't want us to be empowered because it's a threat. So us taking responsibility for our lives, regardless of what I just mentioned, we should want to be responsible for our planet. We should want to be responsible for humanity. We should want to be responsible for all of these things, because it's such a gift. It's such a sacred gift that is around us. We should want to be absolutely responsible for preserving it and ensuring that it continues for evermore, not just for our children, not just for humanity, but for the earth, for herself to flourish. And this idea of responsibility is going to be really strong, and we're working with this already. And this is actually emerging with anger. And I don't mean just being angry at what's going on in the world. I actually mean personal anger, which is going to be transforming into personal power. And personal power is related to responsibility. And we're learning about personal power on a huge, huge level this year. And it's starting on our own inner circles. And soon it will start to merge into that collective level. The universe is just insanely clever and orchestrating this incredible design. And if you take yourself out of it, you can start to see what they're doing. Even a fraction of it is just unbelievably complex and incredible. And I'm just amazed when I begin to see just a glimpse and vision of what I'm sometimes shown of what happens on this outer level. And as we're starting to see all this seeming chaos outside in the world with all of this stuff that's going on in America and the UK and the Middle East, and all of this prospect of war, and as all of this chaos comes up, what's actually happening simultaneously on an individual level is that we're learning about anger and power and responsibility. Imagine what's going to happen as that comes to fruition with the outer world. We're going to have empowered individuals, conscious, ready to participate in the outer world. And this is where we will start to reclaim our world again, reclaim humanity again, reclaim our process in the world again. And so these energy updates that I give aren't just on a personal level, they're on a collective level, as everything should be. It's us, the individual, and it's us as a whole together. And we need to start to merge this together. We learned in the first week on this course that the Lakota tribe have no word for the self. Or at least very, very few words for the self, and there's over 250 words for the self in the English language. But it shows the nature of our different cultures, of what's happening. Now, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there is something happening where we're merging, and it's important for us in the West to remember the unity, the whole, the service energy, the collective energy, and not try to take the whole world on our shoulders, not try to heal everything on our own. This is what we do with spiritual growth. We get caught up in endless healing because we're trying to heal the whole planet, the whole human consciousness through ourselves. We need to learn to let go and let God. That's a saying you may have heard, let go and let God. And what that essentially means is let go and let the universe take over. Allow the universe, which is you, the greater aspect of you, to take over. Your ego may not like it, or depending which way you're coming from, if you've already worked with that, you're going to love it. But the ego may not like it at first because it's saying somebody else is in control. I'm not in control. Allow yourself to let go of control and just surrender. Surrender to something greater than you, Mother Earth. Surrender to her and allow her to take this process. And allow her to guide you, allow her to teach you, allow her to communicate with you, and allow her to show you the way. Take yourself into nature and start to communicate and just ask. Don't expect an answer straight away. It may take a week, a month, a year. Can you allow yourself that to happen and still trust? Just by being in nature, just communicating with her and having in your mind what may seem a one-sided conversation. It's actually a two-sided conversation. She's listening, she's answering in a way that you're just learning, relearning how to remember to listen in that way. You're retuning your body to learn how to listen in that way. And this is the final thing that I want to speak about in this video, and that is this idea of time. Everything takes time. It takes time to heal. It takes time to grow. It takes time to get somewhere. It takes time to evolve. It takes time to break something down. It takes time for us to move through these processes. It takes time for us to awaken gifts. And we have a very insatiable need to have their results, solution, goal completed in this moment now, yesterday. That's our Western way of looking at things. Yet if we can start to let go of this idea that we know when that answer is going to come, or we even expect when it's going to come, or when something's going to complete, we take our time. Again, I'm speaking about this feminine process, which is all about time, because as you create this space for time, you create the space for the intuition to receive above and below. And we allow ourselves to open up and truly begin to listen again to what's going on, and listen to our environment, listen to our surroundings, listening to ourselves internally. And as we do that, we start to operate in a very, very different frequency. We start to slow down and realize, you know what, it's okay. I don't need to get anywhere. I don't have anything to prove to anyone, to anything, to any situation. Don't have anything to prove. Remember this, you have nothing to prove to anyone. You have no status to achieve. You have nothing to show anybody of who you are, to prove yourself, to validate yourself to anybody. You are living your life according to your means, according to your flow, according to your rhythm, and your own incredible experience that the universe is experiencing through you. So remember that you are on your own journey, and you're part of a collective journey. We're all journeying together, yet we're on our own unique individual journeys in our own pace. So that's it for me for May, and I will be back in June. Have an amazing month, and allow yourself to just be with yourself, be with nature, be with spirit, be with your life, be with your emotions, and allow yourself to slow down into the pace that is yours. Have a great month.
And who can say if your love grows as your